Throughout history, festivals have been more than just food, music, and celebration. Across ancient civilizations, they often carried a much darker side, where rituals of blood, sacrifice, and superstition mixed with joy and worship. From kings proving their power through horse sacrifices in India, to Romans throwing effigies into rivers, to Vikings mixing feasting with human offerings, these festivals reveal just how strange and unsettling our ancestors' traditions could be. What might seem like simple holidays to us today were, in the ancient world, moments of fear, power, and divine appeasement. Toxcatl, the Aztec festival of sacrifice. The Toxcatl festival was one of the most important annual Aztec celebrations dedicated to the god Tezcatlipoca. Held in May, it centered around a young man chosen the previous year to impersonate the god. Often, a war captive, once selected, his life transformed. He wore embroidered clothes and jewelry, played the flute, smoked tobacco, and carried flowers, being honored as the living image of the deity. For a full year, he lived in luxury, even marrying 4 women who represented goddesses just before the festival. However, this honor came with a deadly price. During the Toxcatl ceremony, he climbed the temple steps where priests sacrificed him by cutting open his chest, removing his heart, and beheading him, followed by the sacrifice of his 4 brides. Once the ritual ended, a new man was chosen to continue the cycle for the next year's festival. Ashvamedha, the horse sacrifice. The Ashvamedha, or horse sacrifice, was one of the grandest rituals of ancient India, reserved only for powerful and victorious kings. Its purpose was to display dominance and expand territorial control. A sacred horse, usually a white stallion with black spots, was chosen and set free to roam for a year, guarded by the king's men. Wherever the horse wandered, the king claimed authority over that land, and any ruler who opposed it had to challenge the king's warriors, often leading to war. When the horse returned, elaborate ceremonies began, ending with the horse being decorated, tethered, and then suffocated. Hundreds of other animals were sacrificed alongside it, and the chief queen took part in a symbolic ritual by lying beside the dead horse. Priests then cut up the remains, offering them through sacred fire rituals. After purification baths for all participants, the king's dominance was firmly established in a dramatic display of divine-backed power. Bacchanalia, Rome's wild festival. The Bacchanalia was an ancient Roman festival dedicated to Bacchus, the god of wine, freedom, and ecstasy. What began as a modest daytime ritual, mostly involving women, later evolved into wild, all-night celebrations filled with music, heavy drinking, and dancing, where men and women of all classes mingled together. Over time, the parties became so unruly that Roman authorities grew alarmed. The historian Livy wrote that some leaders used the gatherings to manipulate people, plot crimes, and even organize killings under the cover of intoxication and chaos. While his accounts may have been exaggerated, they reveal the deep suspicion and fear these festivities created. To many Romans, the Bacchanalia was not just a festival but a dangerous force that threatened public order and morality. Viking Yule, a festive season with a dark side. The Viking Yule festival, often seen as the origin of many Christmas traditions, was both festive and grim. People feasted, drank, burned the Yule log, and decorated trees in celebrations that sound familiar today. But every 9th year, Yule took a darker turn. Over the course of 9 days, the king would sacrifice 81 people, 9 each day, offering their heads to the gods. While feasting and merrymaking filled the air, human sacrifice was an inseparable part of the ritual. Like many ancient cultures, the Vikings tied blood offerings to divine favor. But the overlap with a holiday season makes it especially shocking to modern imagination. Thargelia, Athens' harvest festival. Thargelia was one of Athens' key festivals honoring Apollo and Artemis, tied to the harvest season. On the first day, Athenians offered the first fruits of their crops and held purification rituals to protect against disease or drought. However, the festival also carried a dark custom. The city selected the ugliest individuals, parading them with figs around their necks while whipping them. Some accounts claim they were stoned to death, their ashes scattered on the fields as a form of ritual fertility. In other cases, they were merely beaten or cast out as scapegoats for misfortune. The second day of Thargelia was more joyful, with processions, singing contests, and olive branches placed on doors to guard crops, as well as ceremonies to welcome adopted children into families. Despite its festive side, the brutal scapegoat ritual casts a dark shadow over the celebration. The Lycaea, the wolf festival of Arcadia. The Lycaea was a mysterious festival held on the slopes of Mount Lycaon in Arcadia, Greece, and much of what we know comes from unsettling rumors. Its origin was tied to King Lycaon, who tried to trick Zeus by serving him human flesh. In punishment, Zeus turned him into a wolf, but restored his son to life. According to Plato, every 9 years the Arcadians performed a mix of animal and human sacrifices, with the entrails blended together so no one could tell them apart. Participants would then eat the mixture, and anyone who unknowingly consumed the human portion was said to transform into a wolf for 9 years. If they avoided human flesh during that time, they could return to human form, but failure meant remaining a wolf forever. The Lycaea thus stood out as one of the strangest and darkest festivals of ancient Greece. Lupercalia, Rome's festival of fertility. Lupercalia was an ancient Roman festival celebrated on the 15th of February and overseen by priests known as the Luperci. It began with the sacrifice of goats and a dog, followed by a ritual where young priests had their foreheads touched with blood, then wiped clean with milk-soaked wool while laughing, a required part of the ceremony. After a feast, the priests cut strips from the goat skins and ran through the city, playfully whipping women with them. Far from punishment, this act was believed to increase fertility and bring good luck in childbirth. The festival endured for centuries, but by 494 CE, it was banned by the Christian Church. Arge, Rome's forgotten ritual. The Arge was one of the strangest and most mysterious Roman ceremonies, performed twice a year in March and May. By the time of Emperor Augustus, its original meaning had already been forgotten. The ritual involved a grand procession of priests, virgins, and officials visiting 27 shrines across the city. At each shrine, they collected straw figures shaped like bound humans, made from reeds and rushes. Once all were gathered, the procession marched to Rome's oldest bridge, where the figures were thrown into the river as an act of purification. Though later traditions claimed Hercules had put an end to such rituals long before Rome's founding. Whatever its true origin, Arge remained an unsettling reminder of Rome's shadowy religious past.